Mercedes-Benz stormed onto India's EV stage by launching the country's first luxury electric SUV. They then followed up this novel act by introducing the country's first locally assembled EV, its flagship EV, the EQS. However, there was a bit of a missing link in the equation, as the country needed a practical go-anywhere off-roader that was built on a born electric platform, and that's exactly what we've got here in the beautiful valley of Gulmarg.
The EQE 500 SUV is Mercedes-Benz India's first born electric SUV and arrives via the CBU route, given that it was unavailable in CKD form. Built on the same modular EVA platform as the locally assembled EQS means that the EQE has a tough act to follow. Still, it does have a leg up over rival e-SUVs in the market.
Now, a lot of you have wondered why the EV counterparts to Merc's ICE flagships look so dramatically different from each other, and that is because Mercedes is the only luxury EV maker in the country right now that's making vehicles on a born electric platform, and that's what sets them apart from other EV makers like BMW and Audi, whose cars are essentially repurposed ICE platforms. And this isn't that. This is a born electric SUV that has given them the freedom to design it in accordance with the rules of aerodynamism, and that enhances the car's range, which is a major draw for these EV SUVs. So it allowed the jelly bean-like EQS to have claimed range of a staggering 850 km, and the same way this shape that you see, which is a little curvier, it's not as boxy and overtly SUV-ish as the GLE. Well, this shape, these aerodynamically designed, engineered wheels and the Pan America grille that you see on top, it's sealed off so that it can channel more wind underneath, and this sort of sculpted exterior helps just break the airflow a little better, and that gives it a range of 550. Now, of course, the real world range will differ, give or take about 30%, but it's this that is really the advantage that Merc's EVs have over their competitors, because not only do they offer greater range because of just how aerodynamic they are, they also feel much lighter to drive, they're very nimble, they feel very planted, and it allows Mercedes to play around with the design and really maximize the skateboard chassis platform that comes with a born electric car.
Being priced so tantalizingly close to the larger, more plush EQS Sedan puts the EQE somewhere between a rock and a hard place. Luckily, that sort of environment isn't an issue for the EQE, whose ground clearance of approximately 174mm can be raised by an additional 25mm thanks to its air suspension. It's not as high as that of the Audi Q8 e-tron, but it does allow the EQE to scuttle over uneven surfaces better than any other Mercedes-Benz EV.
So on the inside, this is very similar to what we have in the EQS, which means you get this pillar-to-pillar 56-inch hyper screen that's essentially divided into 3 screens. What's different here is that you do get an off-road mode, and this off-road mode is very similar to what we've seen in the new GLC. With the off-road package, you also get the invisible bonnet function, which means wheel articulation is really easy because you can see the ground underneath the bonnet section, and that makes it really easy for you to go over ruts and muddy terrains. We've actually been trying out on these mountains of Gulmarg, which are normally fairly smooth, but there are some undulations here and there, and it's performed exceptionally well. I can't imagine an EQS for sure going and just scuttling up over hills the way this thing does, and that's essentially where the appeal of the EQE SUV lies.
The cabin of the EQE tries to balance out the bleeding-edge futurism with a more organic look thanks to open-pore wood panels and aluminium inserts. The absence of a transmission tunnel also allows the EQE to have a lot more storage space, while the use of recycled materials further helps cut down the carbon footprint of the car. Steering-mounted touch-sensitive controls allow you to easily operate ADAS functions and cruise control, with a customizable gauge cluster offering everything from an uninterrupted view of the sat-nav or ADAS-led views of obstructions ahead, be it human or vehicular. The paddle shifters allow you to toggle intelligent recuperation, which uses multiple data points to modulate braking for you while recovering energy. It's intuitive and features machine learning, basing its inputs on your driving style and the environment, and slowing the car down should the vehicle in front of you slow down. But the front half of the cabin is only half of the equation.
Now, this section is just as, if not more important than what we have up front, because Mercedes-Benz believes that this EQE SUV, as compared to the EQS Sedan, is going to be preferred more by those who want to be seated at the back instead of taking control of the wheel. Mercedes says that the EQS Sedan's dynamism, its low ground clearance, etc., makes it a little more conducive for being driven by enthusiasts. It also has rear wheel steering, which allows it to corner much better. And this thing is for those who would much rather be driven around. And in that sense, I feel like it has a slight disadvantage, not because it's not comfortable in any regard, but when you compare it to the EQS Sedan, which is only rupees 20 lakh more, then you find this a little lacking, especially considering that in recent times they've included a rear seat entertainment package for the EQS Sedan, which this one doesn't get. They also have these headrest mounted soft gel-based pillows, which you find in the S-Class as well, and those two are missing here. So it's not like it has a clear advantage in terms of rear seat comfort when it comes to its comparison with the EQS, which also comes with a bigger battery, more power, more range. The only disadvantage facing the EQS is that it has considerably lower ground clearance, so you can't really just drive it uphill. In fact, even speed breakers are a big challenge when it comes to the EQS Sedan, and they aren't with this thing. With its air suspension lifted up, you can further lift the ground clearance by another 25 millimeters, and that really helps it pretty much go over wherever you want. So when it comes to comparing these two vehicles with a very different form factor and therefore very different use cases, it essentially comes down to where you can take this car. That's essentially its core advantage, and that leaves it to you, the consumer. What would you rather prefer? The form factor of a sedan, its low slung, easy cornering finesse, or would you prefer something like this, which is a bit more practical, which is a bit more easier to drive across any kind of terrain in India?
On the road, however, the advantage lies with the EQE, which has a right balance of performance and practicality. The hyperscreen allows easy access to its varied functions, from ADAS to even the EQE's air purifier, which allegedly nullifies airborne toxins by 99%. A single menu allows you to raise or lower the car's ride height, toggle ADAS functions, and access any angle of the car through its extensive array of cameras on all sides. And then there's just the way this thing drives.
Let's talk about the basics of this car, what the powertrain is like. You get a 90.56 kilowatt hour battery, but that isn't the eye-watering figure. That would be the 858 newton meters of torque that you get with this thing, and that essentially results in astonishing acceleration. And to be honest, an ICE equivalent just cannot provide that kind of raw, flat torque curve that you get with this. And once you get acclimatized to it, there's really nothing quite like it. It, of course, has a whole host of ADAS functions, from active brake assist to active steering assist. And in most Indian environments, active brake assist is best left turned off because it is very zealous and very enthusiastic, let's just put it that way. So the second it detects the slightest thing that it translates as an obstruction, the car tends to come to a grinding halt. And you don't really want that, especially if you've got speeding cars at the back. So I've turned that off, and I've turned off the active steering assist, which on a dual lane works in tandem with the cruise control. So you can actually modulate the speed without really tapping the throttle. Now, when we're faced with something like this, which is a bit treacherous, it's very simple, and this is the advantage the EQS does not have. All I have to do is press this button, which raises the overall ride height by 25 millimeters. I go into the invisible bonnet function and I'm easily able to just waft over this without any concern, and I feel like that is going to be the primary USP for a car like this. It's not like, even with its ride height raised, it kind of tends to wallow about the surface like you would with a standard SUV, especially a ladder frame one. No, this actually feels really planted. It feels really nimble, and just cornering it and throwing it around the bends is actually very reassuring, and it feels drastically different from its competitors, which still have, the heavy ICE chassis to deal with. And this feels dramatically different. It feels just so supple.
And every time you think you're in a tight spot, the hyperscreen proves to be a valuable aid.
When I first saw the hyperscreen, as beautiful and innovative as it is, I thought it might be a case of overkill. But I stand completely corrected, because the view that it offers is just exceptional, especially on narrow roads. If you have to reverse, you'll find that there's just nothing like it. I mean, look at the clarity, look at the sheer size of it. I've not had to even glimpse at the rearview mirror even once, or crane my neck even just a little bit. And once you get used to something like this, these are winding mountain roads. They're a bit narrow, so sometimes it makes no sense to just back into a clearing. You get this 3D view, which is just spectacular. So if I'm going off the tarmac just a little bit, I know exactly what's happening, and that is really, really exceptional. Now, in this pristine valley of Gulmarg, it seems to make even more sense to drive a car like this. And I understand that EVs aren't entirely without fault, and they're not completely green when you take in the manufacturing process. But here, to drive anything else just seems wrong, and a zero tailpipe emission car is the flavor of the season, as it were.
So, can the EQE SUV match the GLE's appeal pound for pound? It's hard to say, because the GLE is a bestseller for a reason, with its individual suspension settings making it the better off-roader by a mile. But what the EQE does is showcase just what the future of electric SUVs will be like: intuitive and hassle-free. It may not have the towering presence or the classic appeal of the GLE, but its breathtaking acceleration, dynamism, and recuperative prowess make it a superior performer in many ways. For its part, Mercedes-Benz isn't pitting the EQE against the GLE or the EQS Sedan, because the only real winner here is the consumer, whose wide variety of preferences can now be better addressed by the brand than ever before.